Okay, so thanks everybody for coming. This is our annual meeting for the Rocky Hill Historical Society. I am Ed Ciccarello, and I hope you like my new background. You see, we're number one over here. Oh, where is it? Over there, and Academy Hall. Wow, over there. Our goal here is to preserve, promote, and protect the history of Rocky Hill. And our vision is to be the friendly little museum in the center of Rocky Hill. And everybody is welcome. So thank you very much for coming today. We're going to have a brief business meeting. We're going to hear a song by our beloved Rudy. We'll have Tim Honan do a program then afterwards on Rocky Hill with some pictures now and then. And then lastly, we'll have Bob Herron doing a program on notable women. They'll be brief. They're not going to be 2 hours. They're going to be short ones. And if you have questions, of course, like always, you can always raise your hand and ask questions. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And I want to go to our website. I'm going to go to the Historical Society website and go over to where it says newsletters. And I'm going to open up our latest newsletter because I want to get to just acknowledge some of the people that we've lost this year. And in memoriam, the 4 folks that we include in our newsletter: Joe Kohanic, Mitch Sword, Neil Cox, and Rudy. And I know recently just Sue Monahan just passed, so we want to just give a little honor to these folks. And we decided we were going to open up tonight by playing a song that Rudy did. Of course, Rudy was a singer-songwriter. And here's a song called Rocky Hill is My Hometown.
My hometown, lots of memories here. Wildlife out in my backyard, coyote, fox, and deer. We have footprints from the past in our dinosaur park. Come visit us and see them. There's lots of room to park. The ferry on the river is the oldest in the land. At Elmridge Park in summer, we gather to hear the bands. We have well-marked walking trails along the riverfront. And for historic houses, you don't even have to hunt. Good schools and churches, parks for kids to play. Historical society preserving yesterday. The stories of shipbuilding, the history of our farm. Police and volunteer firemen protect us from all harm. Our town, located in the center of the state, has access to all highways and access that's great. So come and take a tour with me when you have time to kill. Learn all about my old hometown, the town of Rocky Hill.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And that was his sister in the background saying, "I like that." We were lucky enough. Bob Herron and I were lucky to grab an interview. Whoop, sorry about that. I thought I turned off my mail. Let me turn off my mail. My mistake. Bob Herron and I were lucky enough to have interviewed Rudy and his sister Gladys Kitchens, and you could find that interview along with 2 songs that actually Rudy sang during that time. I don't know, Bob, you want to make any comment on that?
Not much to comment. I've known Rudy for about 20 years, and everybody agrees he was a damn nice guy. That's
Yeah.
my comment.
Good enough. Good enough. So we have, one part of our agenda tonight is we have to have a quick business meeting. Why? Is that me or is that somebody else beeping that time? I don't.
It's mine. That is mine. I tried to
Okay,
shut
so
it off.
turn
I'm-
off your mail. I thought that's your mail, or maybe mute yourself so that we.
Yeah.
Hear that.
Oh, okay. I'll mute us.
There you go. Good, thanks. Okay, so yeah, part of tonight's agenda is that we have to have a quick little business meeting to elect officers and keep the place afloat. And we've got our good friend Tim Honan, who has agreed to read off our nomination for officers. You could read that, Tim? You could see that good enough?
Yes, I can, no problem at all.
All right, go for it, Tim.
Okay, we are fortunate to have competent people who are willing and able to do the job here. So based on the work we've done over the last couple of months, I would like to nominate for president, continue on in his role, Ed Chicarello, for vice president, Jack Casella, for secretary, Nancy Burtwell, and for treasurer, John Serra. All I think are very competent, very good people. We're glad to have them. I would recommend that they be accepted, or move that they be accepted as the officers for next year.
And so we need to have a
Have a
second.
second?
Do we have a second from somebody?
Yeah, I'll second.
Lori
Lori.
seconds it. If there's any discussion from anyone?
Well, no.
All right, then I guess all in favor, just raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
I don't think we could really vote for ourselves, John and Nancy and Jim. But thank you very much.
Everybody is everybody.
I know, everybody is everybody. And so the rest of the organization, very, very simply, you can see we have 6 other chair people that are appointed by the president and approved by the executive committee. And you can see that there's a number of people, number of roles that are open. But we have Gail Tyen as program chair and Lori Wallace as building chair. And I would appoint both of you once again, and thank you for doing what you've been doing already and continuing on. And if anybody knows of anyone in regards to membership or finance or publicity, a museum, give us a call. Let us know if you're interested. And we'd love to have you come for volunteering or to volunteer. Okay. Any comments or questions?
No.
All right, moving down quickly, we have non-voting standing committees. We have Sandy Brown has been doing our audit, and we want to thank you, Sandy. Tim Honan, thanks for stepping up and doing the nominating tonight. In collections, we have myself, Bob, and Lori, and I saw Maureen. I saw Maureen here tonight, which is great. And Maureen, I didn't know if you wanted if you wanted to be included in the collection still. I'd love to have you, but are you there? You want to unmute yourself and talk now, or tell me another time? I don't want to put you on.
Let me let you know, Ed.
Yeah,
But I miss the society. I'll let you know.
Yeah, great. And we miss you, Maureen. You know that. Volunteer, we have Jack. Library right now, we have Lori and Nancy and Susan and Sandy. And photos, we have Tim and Bob and Mike, and technology and myself and Tim. And then lastly, sales is Nancy Burtwell. So those are the folks that are, are keeping the society afloat. We want to certainly thank you all for doing that. And if, again, other people that are here, if you want to, if you know somebody who's interested, want to spend a little time, want to spend a lot of time, have them give somebody a call. All right. Any further questions or comments? All right, great. Now, John, I didn't know if you wanted to give a report or not. Did you want to give a report, John, or not? You want to leave it as the new, it's in the newsletter.
If the report's in the newsletter, we can probably do with that, but I'm not sure if everybody's seen it.
Up to you.
Well,
I
I'd say we had, for this past year now, March 31st, 2001, we had an increase in our total assets of $1,488, which is down quite a bit in previous years. But then again, we also had something called the coronavirus, which kept everybody pretty much indoors. So I don't think it was too bad at all. And some of that came from off of PayPal, through our website, people were buying things. We also had an increase in our donations in last year of $4,341.24. And like I said, a lot of people were still making donations, even though they weren't getting out of their house. They were still wanted they could be part of it. But beyond that, hopefully we'll get going again pretty soon. Right now, we're in the middle of our membership drive for the year, and I've been depositing money on that so far. We've been doing okay. And that's about what I've got to say.
Great, John. Thank you. And, for those of you who received our newsletter, basically our annual report is the newsletter. So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about last year because I think we all want to forget about last year and move on to the future, right?
Yep.
But the president's message is in there. Of course, we've got our new VP Jack and membership. We've got reports on programs there and our calendar of events. Of course, John just gave a little report on Treasury, and Nancy talks about sales, and Bob, of course, is constantly moving with his different activities and writings and library. Lori has been working diligently with Susan and Nancy and Sandy in the library, and Tim has been working on photos. So I think that's it. For reports, we don't want to have it be a long business meeting. It's a very short one, and I'm going to stop my sharing right now. And if there's any questions or comments, and before we move on we're going to go right into our programs then.
I'd like to just give a little update on membership, if I might, just a
Please.
second or two.
Absolutely, Jack.
Yeah, I just reviewed our database, and as of today, we have 152 active members. Of those, 48 are lifetime members. We have 104 members that are subject to annual dues, whether they be individual, family, or sustaining. Of those, 37 have paid for the upcoming year. Our year runs from June 1st through May 31st. So 37 have paid for that period. And obviously the balance of 67 people still owe for this year. So we're hoping that, I know we've had some good returns, but hoping that we'll get some more and get that number up where it should be with people paying for next year. As far as looking forward, our membership drive is going to primarily consist of our presence at the farmers markets, the 4 farmers markets this year. We're going to have a booth. We're going to set it up in a way that we can talk to people, hand out copies of our newsletter, and encourage them to join and to be active in many of the roles that Ed just went over. So that's about it for membership. Thank you for the time.
Great, thanks, Jack. I just saw something in the chat that Gail said that there's going to be a bench in the little library will be installed on Old Main Street at the Congregational Church in memory of Neil Cox. So
Okay.
that's awesome. Neil is my neighbor. Great guy. So any other comments before we move into our program or questions?
Neil Cox comment, didn't he have an awful lot to do with the Elm Street Historic District?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was the person that put that together.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so our first, Tim, you could start to share your screen. Oh, hold on a second. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Hold on, Tim.
Yep.
Hey, there he is.
There you go. All right, Tim. Now you can do
There
it.
we go.
Now you can do it. All right. So Tim, we have Tim Honan, who is our photo man right now. And he is going to do a short, I think probably 15, 20 minutes or so program on some photos and a little bit of a then and now. And so without stepping on your toes any further and telling what you're going to do, I'm going to let you tell what you're going to do, Tim. So Tim Honan, thanks, bud.
Okay, let me first check and make sure that you are indeed seeing the correct screen here.
Yep.
Hopefully it's the Rocky Hill Historical Society annual meeting.
Yep.
You see now?
That's
Oh, good. Okay, with that, I will move on then to the second slide. I want to talk a little bit about the photo collection and what's there. I think many of you know it, so I'll be a little bit brief here. But we have over 2,000 photos, 700 in hard copy. We have a lot from Mike Martino that we've gotten over the years. The Howell brothers, we've had donations from people over the years that always are collected, and they're all in electronic form. Many of them, about 7 of them, as I said, are in hard copy form. Some of them have a relatively low resolution, and I call it suitable for viewing, but not necessarily for printing. So you can see them, but if you want to print a good 8 by 10 or 11 by 14, something you can put on your wall, they need to have higher resolution, so we may need to go rescan some of them. I want to give a shout out to Bob Herron and Mike Martino, who put together a really good book with 200 historic photos, and I got an arrow pointing to it. I love it. I flipped through it. Bobby did a great job with that. I don't believe Mike is with us here today. I didn't see him on the list of people, but I want to make sure everyone is aware that that book is out there, and it's quite good.
Yeah. And they are for sale at the Historical Society, and everybody should have at least one, probably two, because you never know, you might leave one on the bus.
We do also get requests for photos periodically. Usually comes in with an email. I'm looking for pictures of something here, there, and we do respond to those. And that is a service that we provide, and I think it's very well received in the community when we do that. What I wanted to talk about in this presentation is really two things: improvements for the future that I have in mind, and a sampling of the photos that we have, just get a sense for what's in there. So move on to the next slide here. The possibilities, and a lot of these things are just thoughts that I have. I've spoken a little bit with Ed about them, but ultimately we have to probably go to the executive committee and get blessing for a lot of this. But I think that one of the issues we have right now is that the photos are not available on the website. It's good that people can come into Academy Hall and see them, but a lot of people won't or can't or whatever. If we can make them available on our website, I think they'd get a lot more traffic, a lot more people would look at them, and they'd be a lot more helpful to the community at large. And I do have a note in here. We want to check that it's a real person, like click to make sure you're a real person or something, because we don't want someone to come in and download 2,000 photos and put them up as part of their subscription website or something. And as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to rescan some of them at a higher resolution so they'll be suitable for printing if somebody wants to. One of the things I've noticed trying to look through these pictures is that we have a good list of the pictures and what they are. And we have the pile of pictures, not necessarily a separate spot, you need to see through a separate window on your computer. And so we say, oh, I'd like to see this picture, and you have to go find it. Or you have a picture, say, I wonder what that is, and you have to open up the other file to find it. I'd almost like to electronically link these if it's possible. I'll call it conveniently possible to do that. So you can see a picture and have a description of it right there. So there's a lot less back and forth that has to be done.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is missing from our photo collection is really photos of our objects. We have the whole second floor is full of objects, and we have a lot of them down on display on the first floor. And I think it would be helpful if we could take pictures of all of these things and have them available also on the website, again, to make our stuff more visible to people in the surrounding community who can't or don't have time to come down to Academy Hall to take a look at it. I'll pause there for a second. If anyone has any questions, because the next part is really going through a sampling of the pictures we have here. So I'll pause for a second, see if anyone has any questions on the philosophy that I got here, where I think we're going forward. Okay, hearing none.
Well, I would just jump in and say, thumbs up, way to go. Love the ideas.
Yeah, as I mentioned to Ed in the past, I have enough thoughts in my head that basically would keep me busy for much of the rest of my life. So if anyone knows anyone who would like to help with this, that would be great, because we can stay busy for a long, long time getting a lot of this stuff done.
Yeah,
Next,
and great
I will
job,
do-
Tim.
What's that? Oh,
Great job,
thanks.
Tim. Keep up the good work.
Next, I'll just go through a sampling of the pictures. I think many of you already seen it, so I won't dwell on them. But in the top left on this slide here, and in fact, let me zoom in a little bit here, if I can to zoom in. There we go.
There we go.
This is a picture of Academy Hall and the Congregational Church, and it was taken from right about where the library entrance is right now. Obviously, Town Hall wasn't there at the time. This is from, I believe, 1850, and it's the oldest photo in our collection. It was not taken on a glass plate. It's about 2 inches by 3 inches. I would like to know a lot more about how they did it, and at some point I'll have to learn, but there you can see there's color on it. It wasn't a color picture so much as I think somebody painted the colors on the glass plate after the fact. But I love this photo. And what I tried to do with it, and many of you I think have seen the overhead pictures that we had with the farm mat. But one of the reasons I like those is we can now take that overhead view from 1934 and try and get a sense for where that was taken and how the world has changed from 1850 to 1934 and compare it to how it is today when we look there. So what I've got circled here is basically the area of view of that picture. And here's the Congregational Church, which is up here in the picture. Here is Academy Hall, which shows over here. This is Center School, which was built after 1850. I have a picture of that later that I'll show. But this photo was taken from right about the base of this arrow in this direction. And so you can see you're looking at what's the back of Academy Hall and the north side of the Congregational Church. Now, where this spot is today, you can overlay this on a current map. And what you'll find is, if you know, the library is right about here. So this is, if you come into the south entrance to the library, you know, you kind of go across it, alongside it, and back out the north side. And this entrance goes in and splits left of the library and right to the community center and town hall. That is right about where that picture was taken from, best I can tell. But I do like to be able to take the overhead views and get a sense for where this picture was taken from. It really helps put the context of where this picture came from. And it helps me visualize in my mind exactly where this picture was from and how things looked in the past. I'll try and move over to two more pictures I've got of Academy Hall. I like this one here. This is 1907. There's a similar picture from the other side. This is the south side of the second floor. On the north side of the second floor, there's a similar picture taken on the same day. It looks like it's the equivalent of middle school and high school kids. But you can see it was set up as a classroom. And the spot in the back over here where the teachers are standing, this is where the library is now. And so it gives you a sense for how things have changed over time. The Academy Hall started as a school, got replaced essentially by Center School, and then later the school district grew from Center School on. But you can see this is what Academy Hall was. It really was a school in the past. This is over 100 years ago, but it really was a school. And going down here in 1910s, it's another interesting picture. The first thing that jumps out at me when I saw this picture, this is the front of the building, now the front of the building from Main Street. There's no stairways.
Yeah.
They went in, if you remember, there were these enclosures in the back. So the main entrance was in the back. You go in the side, you go through into the door on the outside of the enclosure, you go into the first floor, you go up the stairway and into the second. So back in here, you see the doorway into the school on the second floor. And again, there was another one of these enclosures on the north side of the building that led into the other classroom on the other side. But again, this is a little history of our home building here, and I find it to be fascinating.
Absolutely.
Next up, go ahead. I'm sorry, where was that? Am I going too fast here? I'm trying to zip through this to be respectful of people's time here.
No.
But I have no problem with slowing down for questions if people have them here.
You're doing fine.
Great, Tim. Keep going, buddy. Sounds good.
Next up, we have a new Rocky Hill Farm exhibit. So I took some of the pictures that are on that exhibit, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to plug our new exhibit here. Rocky Hill Farms, I got 2 pages of these, but here we have C.B. Gilbert Farms. It's not the Gilbert Farm that's on Gilbert Road, which is a little further down Elm Street. This one, again, using the overhead views. The Silestine Highway is down here. You go up West Street, and when you come up the hill, you have Chapin Avenue off to the right. And when you get to the spot, you know, where it bends to the left and then back to the right. Just before it bends to the left, if you stop there and turn right, what you find is that's where this picture was taken from. It used to be a dairy farm. And again, another little fascinating bit of what happened in a different area of our town. There's Gilbert, C.B. Gilbert, the same farmer, the same dairy farmer, delivering milk in Hartford in the 1900s. And a couple of decades later, in the 1940s again, Charlie Gilbert, I think he's further up Elm Street, delivering milk the old-fashioned way. And again, we have a new display that has a milk box and a couple of the old milk bottles and stuff that you can see if you go in the first floor of Academy Hall now. And more on the farms. The Emilowitz Dairy Farm, I really like this one because it's near where I live, if no other reason. But this was a picture that was taken by, I believe it was Mike Martino. But you can see it was taken, again, the overhead view. You can see it was taken from what this is now about where Silo Drive is. And if you go to Gilbert Avenue, go a little bit further west, and you head right, and this right here is right about where that first bridge over 91 is right now. And so if I, again, zoom in on this a little bit, and it didn't work, let's try it, there we go. What you can see is, let me zoom up, there we go. Here's the old dairy farm, big old farm there. And if you look, you can see the bridge starts like right about here. And the highway comes through up just like this. So this back corner of the building is now probably the breakdown lane of 91 North. Huh. And if you look, another interesting, because I used to go up and watch them build the bridge. And as I went there one day, seeing if there was any progress, and I noticed there's some asphalt. There's a house here right now. And there's, oops, zoom in again. There's a little bit of asphalt, and you can see the asphalt breaks into sort of a triangle shape at the end. So if you're heading down Elm Street, just before you get to the first bridge, if you're not driving and you want to look out the right side of the passenger side of the window, you'll see a little bit of pavement left over that breaks out into a V shape at the end. And it's the remnants of this little piece of road that used to go back into the dairy farm. Right now it just leads, and there's a bunch of trees and stuff that come across here just before you get to the highway. But again, you can see the change over time as we move through. Going over here, I'm not quite sure why I keep unzooming, but I do. This was a picture I came across as part of a request that we had from somebody who sent an email in. But this is a picture of Harry Hayes, anyone was wondering why we have a road named Hayes Road. He lived on that road. But that cow that he's leading there is called Pinky. She was what's that, Bob?
Do you have the original pictures?
I don't believe so. I have to go look to see.
Rats, yeah, because I've got pictures out of a magazine, but these are much better.
Yeah, I'd have to go look and see whether it's just one of they call it the end photos that we just have electronically, or whether it's one of the ones without a prefix letter.
Yeah.
But it certainly is available in a good quality version.
It is.
But Pinky is locally famous. She was born without any hair. She almost froze to death the first winter when it got cold, so they got a sheepskin coat on her, and she wore that in the summer to protect her from the sun, and in the winter to keep her warm. So we have some locally famous cows in addition to people. And down here again, I believe we had this picture on our display, the Meisterling farm, or maybe we did before, but this is taken in 1992 and it still exists today. There's a lot of farming still exists in Rocky Hill, clearly less than there was, but you can see that there's still some. Pause there for a second before I move on to the next one. Comments, thoughts, or anything?
Just great pictures, Tim. Really, really great.
Thank you. And this is another one that several of us have seen. I thought this was helpful to give context of the town, how it's changed over time. This is the farm map from '34. And when you take a look at this, one of the things you see here is that it's almost all farms. You can see over in this area of town, there's some houses. And going up, the main roads, you'll see houses. But the vast majority of what you see is all farm. It was truly a farming community. And I don't believe either of them were here, but both Linda Gilbert and Joan Newman Tennyson were there. I think many of us were there the day that they were there. It was a really fun day going through this map, trying to figure out where all the farms were. These are Linda and Joan, where people have known each other all their life. The Gilbert farm was here, the Newman farm was here. So these are two people that spent their lives a couple hundred yards from each other and known each other forever and had a lot of great stories. It was a really fun day going through and doing this. But this also provides the aerial views that gives a lot of the context that I was using for the other pictures. So this, I think, is very helpful. This is a 1960, I believe it's 5 equivalent one that shows the 91 under construction going through it. But these are things that are very helpful for putting the context, giving a quick view of how things have changed over time. Moving next, I want to talk a little bit about the schools. There were, I'll call it 4 main schools in the mid-1800s, cleverly named North School, South School, West School, and Center School. And these are pictures of all of it at various times. This is the second West School. It's up on Elm Street Extension. You go down Elm Street to the end of Cromwell Avenue, you go up the little extension there, past like the shopping center with Dunkin' Donuts is on the right. It was right up there. This is the second school. It was a brick building, obviously, that replaced a wooden structure in about 1850. And if you take a note of the windows here, 3 windows on the side, and at the end there's doors and potentially windows. The end changes from building to building, but the side is always the same. There were 3 buildings that were more or less the same size, also North and South School. And we'll see them in a second. But come 1916, they built a new West School just down the hill. And this is now where the shopping center where Mazzucato's is. When I first moved into town in the 1980s, there was a sign there that was proclaiming that shopping center to be Schoolhouse Corner. And I always wondered why. And now we know why. They built West School there. It was the 3rd West School. And what you're seeing here is the extended version of it. It was first built as 2 classrooms, and this side here faces Cromwell Avenue, and that was the main entrance. There was a classroom here and a classroom here. They expanded it to 4 classrooms because you couldn't get through the 2 classrooms, get to the back 2. They literally moved the entrance so it faced Elm Street. And so now you had 4 rooms, the original 2 plus 2 more on the side. So they moved the front of the building literally from Cromwell Avenue off to Elm Street as part of the expansions. And this was burned down in '68 to make, I think it was practice for the fire department. But that was, I think, the year that West Hill School came up. It's kind of around the corner from there now. So this is an interesting history of West Hill, well, the West Hill School and how that's evolved over time. Center School, if you remember that picture, that overhead view of Academy Hall, that glass plate photo. And I said there was a school in there, a picture in the way, a building that was in the way that wasn't there in 1850. And this is Center School, and this is a picture of it here. This, I think, replaced Academy Hall as Center School at one point in time. And then moving up over to here, we have North School, and this is my example of why I'd like to make these pictures more public, because this was turned into a private residence. And if you go by and see it now, it's up on Old Main Street, up towards Weathersfield. If you look at it now, the first, where's my car there? The first floor is clearly brick painted white. The second floor is wood frame construction, and there's some porch out on the front and stuff where you can see the core of this building is still there. And if I lived in this house today, I would want to take this picture. I'd want to print it off in a nice 11 by 14 size, frame it, and I would want to put it right inside the front door. So people would come in and see it right away, and it'd be a good conversation starter for anyone coming to the front door. You could literally, they walk in the front door, they could see the picture, they could poke their head back out the door and see where the kids were standing. So this is why I would like to make the pictures more available to people who may not have time to come in and see stuff. But this is a picture that needs to find a home in somebody's foyer. This one down here is South School. Again, you can see here the 3 windows on the side, the same basic shape and size as Second School, as West School. And South School, again, 3 windows on the side, same basic size. This is now the community TV building. It's painted, I believe, a yellow brick. There's a building behind it that's been it's been expanded with an addition. But this was a police station for a while. Again, the community TV building now, but it's how things have evolved over the time. We see how the schools are now, and we forget how they were 100 years ago, which is even different from how they were 200 years ago when Academy Hall was the place to be, and the wooden school off on the west side of town that preceded the brick building here. So it's an interesting evolution of the education system over time. And the last slide I have here is the Rocky Hill Ferry. I put this here mostly because it's the new display we have on the north wall on the first floor. This is the 5 pictures that are up there. So I thought it would encourage people to come in and see our new display and the bigger pictures on the wall down there. But these are basically going clockwise. This is 1910, 1902, about 1900. And you see again more recently, we actually have cars for 1920. And they're trending towards modern cars by 1940. But this is the ferry over time. And so this is basically the presentation I have. I'll pause here to see if there's any questions. If not, I will stop sharing and turn it over to Bob.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do the stop share thing.
Tim, I just wanted to say it's Maureen. I learned a lot from your presentation, and I'm pretty familiar with the photo collection, but you've taken it further. And
Yes.
it's great. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. One of the things I find with these pictures is that every time I have a request for photos, it takes me hours to find the picture. Not because it's hard to find the picture, but I find other pictures and I keep diving into them. And until one picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I've learned a lot about Rocky Hill just by looking at the pictures and seeing what's there now. And you start looking at what's going on around it. And a lot of the history comes to life just by looking at the pictures. And this is part of why I'd like to make the pictures more visible.
Tim, that's fascinating because you're saying pretty much exactly what I said when I first came there and I was doing the scanning of the pictures. It's how I learned about Rocky Hill.
Right.
And sometimes I would leave there when I left because I'd find something fascinating, a house. Is it still there? I'm going to go by. And that's what I would do. I would go by to see if that house was still standing. And I just found it fascinating. But just like you, it's how I learned about Rocky Hill. Yeah.
You know, Tim,
Thank
I
you
used
so
to
much.
work in, Tim, I used to work in Newington for many years, and I went to work every morning going down Elm Street. And that little driveway you were talking about, just this side of 91, I always saw that there. And I said, geez, what the hell do they want to take and put something like that there for? And never realized where it was going to. And
Yeah.
then driving by the corner of Cromwell Avenue and Elm Street, and it's always been that building since I've been here in town. And I never realized it was a school that used to be there. So, I mean, that's that adds to my enjoyment of the town.
I spent years wondering why they call it Schoolhouse Corner till I saw the picture.
Yeah.
So I just want to, throw in to tell everybody, if you don't know about Mike Martino was the sort of the genesis and the guy who was responsible for these pictures. And he's right now having some health problems. And so if you are a prayer, give him a prayer. If you're a person that throws out energy, do that for him. But Bob, do we know if he got back home yet or not?
No, I got to call Rich again and see where that stands. These two single guys who are brothers who've been living together for 60 years. So you got to pull it out of them,
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find out where they are.
But he is having some serious health problems right now. But on another note, Tim, I love how you took some of the maps and you tried to find a focal point where the person took the actual picture. And I was totally off because that one of 1850, I thought it was up by the police station, up by Charlie's house. And I couldn't be, my goodness gracious, I couldn't have been any more off than I was. I mean, it was incredible. So I love that. And I also love that with that 1934 map, which is hung up downstairs in the museum, we're able to show in pictures, farm, Silas Dean, 91, less farms, show the growth. And so I love that part of it too. So many thanks. Any other questions or comments for Tim? Awesome job, man. Love to have you. So now we have Bob Herron, our town historian, who's going to do a program on notable women. I know Bob said he had, and you could go ahead and share your screen, Bob. I'll give you a little intro on the way in. Are you good?
Yeah, need a little hand holding here. There. Okay.
You're good? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking good.
Well, we don't see your screen yet.
You don't?
No.
There he is.
Well, let me see now. One piece missing
Oh,
here.
here you
How's
go.
it now?
Now you're coming. Now we got you, Bob.
There he is.
Now we got you. Good.
Okay, this
All right.
thing
I see you.
Right.
All right. So now we have Bob here and talking about remarkable women in Rock Hill. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Yeah, and my definition of remarkable is still forming. But what I want to do is to find women who've made a significant contribution to the town. I mean, there's a lot of remarkable women here. I'm looking for the superstars, if you will. Okay, the two quotes I used here, Oscar Hammerstein II from Carousel, as long as there's one person on earth who remembers you, it isn't over. And I think our ex-mayor, Joe Kohanek, said it even better. He said, a people dies two deaths, first when you die and the second when you're forgotten. And as I was digging through getting information for these articles we've been posting, I realized there's a lot of people who are on the verge of disappearing into the mists of antiquity. And I want to pull them back. I want to make it so people know they exist. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do here is I've got 5 examples of who I think are remarkable women. I should, when I started doing this about 2 months ago, I went through my files, I found 30 women. Over the last 2 months, I've found 52. So we're gaining, and we're probably going to gain more. Okay, so let's get started here. First remarkable woman will be Abigail Smith Grimes. You'll notice the first land grant that was given here was given to a man named Joseph Smith. Abigail was his daughter. Okay, in 1870, the people in Weathersfield realized that the river was moving, that the town's riverport was in what is now the Weathersfield Cove, up where the motor vehicle department is. If you look at the warehouse in the cove, I remember when I first saw it, I thought that loading dock is awfully high up in the air. That water used to be up to that loading dock, and the river slowly changed. Okay, it used to come down, loop at the motor vehicle department, loop north again, and then go south. And then slowly over time, it just dug a straight line and went straight down. The town saw this coming, and they decided they were going to move the riverport down to what was Stepney Landing at the time, because the riverbank is a lot more solid there on our side and on the South Glastonbury side. So they drafted these grants to the people, the Williamses, the Beaumonts, and the Smiths, and they left a little room aside for a shipyard. My pointing is going to help you at all. The shipyard goes right here. And at the time, if you looked at these grants, they're like 2 paragraphs of really not very informative words, because I don't think they realized what this waterfront was going to turn into. Okay, okay. So they gave these 3 grants in a shipyard, and then Abigail and her husband Hezekiah got to wheeling and dealing, and they ended up owning 2/3, more than 2/3, 3/4 of the river from here over to here. This was all having the same problem you were having, Tim. I ended up owning all this land. The Williamses maintained their ownership of the land on the far left here. And time went on, okay, the riverfront grew. We fought a Revolutionary War. After the Revolution, people in Weathersfield realized that, this is valuable property, and we gave it away easy. So they started an action to try to regain all this land. Damn it. And this is where Abigail comes into play, because she wasn't giving up her land. I mean, they called it her proposed claim to this land, in spite of the fact that she built docks and buildings and it was all developed. So she went to town. And the people who challenged her were Thomas Mix Mitchell, Chester, I can't remember Chester's first name, from Weathersfield, and John Robbins, the owner of the Cumberland Inn. So she was up against some formidable firepower. And she was pretty darn formidable herself, because she went to the town meetings, she defended her property. She finally had to cede her right to the shipyard itself, but she kept everything else. Okay, it's interesting to read these old documents, because the men's names keep showing up until things really heated up. And then suddenly Abigail's name started showing up. Okay, and she kept her I'm very proud of her. She kept her property. She was clearly in control of her affairs up until the time she died in 1792. So she's my remarkable person number 1. I should point out she had a daughter named Sophronia. People used to give their kids names like that. Sophronia was exactly the same in the 1800s, like 1800 to 1850. People were trying to get her land, and she was in there fighting. So good stuff. Okay.
Hey, Bob, is she over at Center Cemetery?
She is. The whole family's there. As a matter of fact, that's a really interesting corner of the cemetery, because the Sophronia stone has a history of her, what happened to all of her brothers who all drowned at sea it's kind of an interesting thing to see. So Grimeses, they used to call the Caribbean the graveyard of the Grimeses because there were so many Grimes sailors who drowned down there. So let's go back the way we came. Okay,
It is.
anybody heard of Aunt Polly Dickinson? She's one of my favorite people because she's such a mystery. There's not much documented about her. Okay, if you go down on Pratt Street, can you guys see this? I have pictures of people in front of it. Okay, if you go down on Pratt Street, this building is still there, 72 Pratt Street. The building behind it used to be the Pomeroy Inn, the Longhouse. It had several names. It was a tavern residential. Sailors used to sleep there, drink there, and I'm wondering what else they did there. But okay, okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Pomeroy died, and Aunt Polly took this thing over. Okay, and for 2 centuries, it was the biggest frame house in town. So it was fairly remarkable. Okay, according to what's in Styles, Aunt Polly used to throw parties. Okay, the one they talk about was the one that happened in 1788. It's a group of 22 sleighs, if you think about that. Okay, and they took a trip down the frozen river, which is another thing to think about. The river used to be frozen solid. So they did 24 sleighs. Went across the river to Glastonbury, went up to Wethersfield, back down the river. I think they stopped in Wethersfield, back to here, and then to her tavern. And they're stopping everywhere for, you think about that. Like, it must have been a hell of a party. Okay. You got to think she was a pretty significant person, because some of the people who went along on this ride were the local magistrate, the minister of the Congregational Church, a bunch of really important people. Okay, I've always wondered about Aunt Polly, because Aunt Polly, okay, she ran a boarding house, she ran a tavern, she provided accommodations for a bunch of sailors on shore leave. I gotta wonder what else happened in that house. It's not very well documented. Okay. The long, oops, I did it again. Okay, if you look at the house then, this is the place where the house used to be now. Okay, this house is still there. There's an ugly, overgrown lot where the longhouse used to be. There were talk about building a really ugly, ordinary brick apartment house there. And I'm kind of hoping that never happens. Okay. The longhouse itself, back in the 1930s, was taken down brick by brick, board by board, and moved to Sherborne, Massachusetts, and reassembled. It's still there. There are some pictures of it in the photo collection. It's just a beautiful place. And it's kind of heartbreaking to look at this beautiful building in Massachusetts and look at that overgrown lot that we've got now. It wasn't much of a bargain. So that's Aunt Polly.
That is very sad, I will say.
It is. And I hate to see that happening. I see more of it all the time. Okay, let's move on to Margaret Grandma Mitchell.
Griswold.
Yeah, okay, I made her a Mitchell. Griswold. She's a really interesting character to me. First of all, she lived for 102 years, which is an accomplishment in its own right. But when she was a young girl, she used to go to New Britain Normal School, which is now Central Connecticut State University. She graduated in 1887. She used to get to school. There's an oral history of her in our collection. And she talks about getting to school. And it was a trek, it was a sojourn. She had to catch the train in Rocky Hill when there was one, so you had to catch it, take the train to Hartford, and then catch the train to New Britain, and then walk to school, and then reverse at the end of the day to get home again. People worked a lot harder back then. I guess they had to.
When you say train, do you mean trolley?
No, I mean train. This was before the trolley.
Oh.
And the trolley came through in 1909.
Oh. Oh, okay.
This was 1887. Okay, and she taught, you saw Tim show you the picture of South School, the way it used to be. She was a teacher there, okay? She taught grades 1 through 9. If you can imagine that little building, trying to teach that curriculum, you got to respect these people. They're incredible. And so the building is still there, as Tim told you. It's been the police station, it's been an upholstery studio, it's the CATV studio now, and it's still there. This is good. So she started teaching school in 1887. In March of 1888, everybody went to school. There was no such thing as a snow day back then. Okay, so everybody went to school. The kids all went to school. There was also no weather forecasting, so nobody knew what was coming. What was coming was the infamous blizzard of '88, and you've probably heard reference to the blizzard of '88. It may be the worst snowstorm we've ever had. So all the kids went to school, and the snow started coming down. And what do we do now? There are no telephones, there are no mass communications. Everybody realizes something bad is happening here. But by the time they could react to it, there wasn't much you could do. You couldn't walk to the school on foot, too much snow. You couldn't ride a horse, too much snow. So what they did was they organized ox carts, okay? You get a team of oxen, you load kids up on the ox cart, you deliver it to their home, you come back, you get the next group of kids. And here's Grandma Griswold, who was not a grandma at the time. She was probably 21 or so. And she's got to organize the traffic at South School. It's a remarkable way to get started. So she had the good sense. Women who were teaching, got married, couldn't teach anymore. Things weren't very fair back then. But she married William F. Griswold in the spring of '88 and got involved in, okay, do you know where Sunnycrest Farm is? You know where Sunnycrest Park is off Parsonage Street? Okay, these guys owned all the land at Sunnycrest Park, the high school, across Parsonage, all those streets that are named for apple orchards now. Across Chapin, that was farmland. There wasn't a road there. Down to the Celestine Highway. In the other direction, it went through Sunnycrest Park and across Orchard Street. And there's a picture in the collection, Tim, of the trucks all parked outside the barn on Orchard Street. It was huge. It was a significant part of the town at the time. Okay, so they were married. William died in 1936. And he died the wealthiest person on the grand list in 1936. So we're building up Grandma Griswold because she basically took over. They set up the Sunnycrest Farm Trust rather than, divide it up against, I forget how many kids, about 8. They decided we set up a trust and everybody will be a participant in the trust and Grandma's in charge. So this was 36. Grandma stayed in charge until 1970, and she was in charge. There was no doubt about it. If you read the newspapers, Grandma signed every check. Nobody else signed checks. Grandma signed checks. Grandma made all the decisions. If you look at her, you can tell she's probably got a pretty strong will. So that remarkable people who had a big impact on the town, Grandma's one of them. Okay. She was a member of all of these things. The Grange used to be very important. All the farmers belonged to the Grange. It was like a lodge for farmers where big important things happened. Board of Education, library, a cemetery. She had her finger in everything until she was like in her late 90s. She slowed down a little bit. I guess we all get tired. She lived to be 102, okay? And she died in 1970. A little while, I'm going to talk about a woman named Granny Griswold. So store that away in the back of your head and we'll get back to it. Okay, Elsie Rhodes is one of my...
Before you go on, do you have any other, or do we have a lot of information or a little information on the Grange itself? You mentioned that the Grange was really a place for farmers and sort of a central, maybe a way for them to sort of gather and discuss and agree. And do we have much of a history on that Grange?
I have dumped a few files into my, the town historians documents. There, I know there's a Grange folder there.
Okay,
I've got to update that and make sure everything's there that belongs there.
okay,
But the short answer is yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Next one, because I want to talk about Elsie. I love Elsie. When I did the book on World War I took all the names off that monument on Center Green, and one of them was E. Rhodes. And I'm wondering, who the hell is E. Rhodes? And I was lucky enough to find a book that had thumbnail sketches of all the World War I veterans from Connecticut. And I found out her name was Elsie. So no dummy here. I said, I'll bet Elsie's a woman. And I was right. And it described her. She was a nurse at the Yale New Haven Hospital in New Haven. And she joined the Army Nursing Corps in 1917. Okay, she got to I think it was hospital number 4 in Paris, just as the Second Battle of the Marne was starting. If you're a big Rocky Hill history fan, you probably know Angelo Campiglio was killed at the Second Battle of the Marne. It was a horrendous battle. A quarter of the American troops there got killed, so it was bad. So Elsie went from Yale New Haven Hospital to this gory nightmare of a hospital in Paris, and stayed there till the war's end. She was there for the Second Battle of the Marne, that the Saint-Mihiel salient, which was another bloody battle, and the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne, which to this day is the most bloody battle the Americans have ever been involved in. So she basically won her spurs right quick when she went to war. Okay, when the war ended, most of the nurses were mustered out. She stayed in. She stayed in the Army and made a career of it. She served in the Philippines. She was the chief nurse at the hospital in San Diego, which I know from my own experiences, Kelly Air Force Base and Lackland Air Force Base. And that's what this picture is of her in San Antonio. Okay, she retired in 1948, the rank of lieutenant colonel, which it was remarkable at the time for a nurse to reach that level of rank. Okay, and she lived to be 90. One thing about our remarkable women is they all seem to live for a long time. So any of you women in the Historical Society, if you want to live to old age, I would recommend that you be remarkable. Just a thought. It was a little side story about Elsie. When I was doing one of my presentations and information gathering things at the Historical Society, I started to talk about Elsie Rhodes, and I had found Elsie Rhodes buried in Meriden. And as I was talking about her, John Storm spoke up, and he knew Elsie, and he had some great stories about Elsie. And he also told me she wasn't buried in Meriden, she's buried in Hartford. But the benefit of asking people questions, I guess. John remembered her being a really interesting person, really likable, really strong-willed, outspoken, and he said she had an incredible talent for swearing. She could put together a line of cusses like a drunk Marine. So I'm looking at this picture of this petite little woman and trying to imagine that. So that's Elsie. And back to my Joe Kohanic quote about, you die twice, once when you die, second when you're forgotten. He was almost forgotten. If I didn't find that name etched on that monument, this wouldn't be here. Okay, so questions on Elsie? Okay, onward. Some of you guys, older guys, might know Lillian Yarrington. She died in 75. She came to my attention. I did an interview with Doug Robbins. Do you know Doug Robbins? He lives at 401 Old Main Street, and his family used to own almost all of the land on the north end of Old Main Street. And they slowly sold it off to realtors. But he told a story of when he was going to Center School, and Tim showed you a picture of Center School, he was a student. I think this happened while Center School looked the way it did in that picture. Um, he was, they were all in school when the hurricane of 1938 hit. Okay. And again, it was just like the blizzard of 88. There was no weather forecast. Nobody knew this thing was coming. As a matter of fact, I saw a thing on public television that when you got out of bed, the sun was shining, the birds were singing. It was just a beautiful day. And everybody went to wherever they went during the day. And they're sitting in Center School, and suddenly this hurricane came up very quickly. And what happened was Lillian got in her car and drove around town because these kids were walking home in the hurricane. So she drove, yeah. Did I hear a voice? Okay. She drove around in her car, picking up kids and driving them home until she was pretty well satisfied she found everybody. So, hurricane story. Okay, Lillian was born in Deep River and graduated from Hartford High. And you may not know, Hartford High used to be a very prestigious school to go to. It was sort of like our version of Boston Latin in Boston. So I'm thinking Lillian must have been a pretty smart kid if she was from Deep River and she went to Hartford High. She, when she graduated from high school, the first thing she did was find transportation for soldiers who had come home. I mean, the Army got you to Connecticut, and then you're sort of standing on a street corner. So she arranged transportation for these guys from wherever the Army dropped them off to wherever they were going. At probably about 18 years old. So she was well on her way to being remarkable. Okay. She moved to Rocky Hill in 1936 with her husband, Charles, who was a World War I veteran. And they were both very active. The American Legion was really important between World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
And they were very important people in the American Legion. Okay, they were also involved in a bunch of other patriotic groups. Okay, I told you about the hurricane. Yep, dancing fingers. She set up what was called Girl State. I don't know if it still exists, but the idea was it was a shadow government for teenage girls. And this was in 1945. And she was its director for 10 years. I don't know if this still exists. I know there used to be organizations like this. And she must have known something about government because she was our state rep from 1947 to 1949. So remember, remarkable contribution to the community. There she is. Okay, she was on the Board of Education in Rocky Hill and on the committee that oversaw the building of Buckley High School in Hartford. Okay, she was a director of the Rocky Hill Veterans Home. She was very much involved with World War I veterans and apparently World War II veterans. But she was known as the flag lady because she would donate flags to anybody for anything. Okay, President Nixon, and I don't know if you remember these guys. I have mixed feelings as I read these names, but President Nixon and Congressman Carter saw to it that she got a citation for her patriotism in the 1970s. And I'm going to walk away from that very quickly. But she died in Rocky Hill in 1975. So that's Lillian. And as I said, I've got 52 names now. These were the 5 that just from a quick scan, I said you, and you. Okay, let me do this. If I can find this. Uh-oh, here it is. Okay, I started putting together a file of remarkable women, and I have 52 women in it. And like I said, I've added 20 in 2 months, so I'm sure there are a lot more. Some of these names you'll recognize, like Claudia Bayo. Some of them you won't, like Esther Lord Batchelor, who was a remarkable educator. And I found her name in the Center Cemetery. That's the only record I found of her. Cora Belden, you know, all know who she is. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to just hit on a few. June Cook. Ed, you could do a testimonial on June, right? Remarkable.
Yes, I love June.
The whole family, Ethel, June,
Yeah,
just remarkable people.
Miss June.
I'll tell you what I'm willing to do. If you guys want to send me an email, I'll send you this file and see if you have anybody you want to add to it. Okay,
Absolutely. Feel free to send it along, Bob.
yeah. Well, yeah, you can either send it to, well, I think I've got a picture of it, but the town historian address or the historical society address. Either wise, it gets to me. I wanted to step forward here just because there was one that I found really interesting. Okay, I talked about Grandma Griswold, right? Who ran Sunnycrest Farm. Just earlier this month, I found Mercy Griswold, who was known as Granny Griswold. Anybody ever hear of Granny Griswold? Granny Griswold was a midwife. You might have seen the article I posted. All the babies who were, all the babies delivered in Rocky Hill until about 1857 were delivered by midwives because male doctors wouldn't go near it. And male doctors weren't welcome. You know, women would get together and you'd have your baby and there would be women there to help you, midwives, what have you. Granny Griswold was the primo, she delivered just about every baby from 1800 to around 1850. So there's a contribution of the community. And this is a person who almost went unnoticed. I sort of found her in an obscure section of the Stiles book. So there are a lot of these. I've got to do a lot more of them myself. So let me just page back here and go to the next page. There you go. And like I say, I'm collecting ideas about remarkable women. So if you have a remarkable woman, by all means, bring me your name and whatever information you have. Okay, and these are the email addresses. And there we have it. There's a lot more to say, but I've said enough for one night.
Very interesting, Bob.
Yes, indeed. Bring them to life.
I'll stop your screen share, Bob, there.
That seems fair.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Wow. That was amazing. I'm feeling like there's another book coming about, Bob.
Very possible, very possible. Well, you know, there's one. We should probably sell it. History Press has me putting together that collection of articles I've been writing into a book. So that's coming.
Great. Any questions for Bob? I mean, or comments? I mean, it's quite amazing. He's just, you could tell from his speaking, you know, everyone he says, and I love this person, you know, he finds these characters and he falls in love with them. He finds the stories. It's really great, Bob. Any comments?
Well, my comment
it's
about
Maureen.
remarkable women is what I'm finding is that Rocky Hill couldn't waste people. You know, there were women who might have gone to waste in a bigger venue, Hartford, what have you. You couldn't waste people in this town. There just weren't enough of us. So you find the women in the state legislature and doing the important work in town. So I'm sure I'm going to find a lot more remarkable women.
Maureen, you wanted to say something?
I just want to say that was wonderful, Bob. I love the commentary. I'd heard these names, but you put some content, detail, flesh on the bones, and wonderful presentation. Thank you.
I know you were interested in Aunt Polly Dickinson. I think we came away with a different impression of her. You hang around with salty old sailors, huh?
Oh, I have the same suspicions as to what happened down there at the riverfront.
Yeah.
I just wish there was more written, and I think of it, you know, think of what it was like living here at the riverfront, since I live at the riverfront, and it's a nice to get more history, and you're writing it, so thank you.
Well, the book I'd like to write is Rocky Hill Babylon, because all of these stories you've come across, you know, thieves and scoundrels, and
yeah,
documents them.
I don't know, we got a Navy man here, Jack Casella. He could probably give us a little. What happens in those ports, Jack?
Yeah, what is that was shortly, Jack.
I want to hear any of my stories. While I have the floor, I want to thank both Bob and Tim for excellent presentations. Both of you have both enlightened me 100% more than being fairly new to the Historical Society and not having spent a lot of time in Rocky Hill. I really appreciate the backdrop stories because they are very interesting. So thank you both for your presentations tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Gail, and I want to thank you, Bob and Tim, for answering my plea for help for tonight for the program. And for those of you attending, if you return on a Thursday night in July, Tim is running a Zoom on genealogy. So that's our next event. So please attend.
I guess all of the decision makers are here. I'm wondering, would anybody have a problem if I did this presentation for the library?
Not me.
No.
No.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
know
that'd be
that.
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
Let
Okay.
us know, we may come.
No, it's this Zooms, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Well, yeah.
absolutely. All right, so it looks like we're getting to the end of our annual meeting here. Well, maybe we'll wrap things up unless anybody has anything further to say for the good of society. We'll take a motion to adjourn unless anybody has something to say.
So
Ed, did you mention the new hours?
No,
It's
Gail.
in, it's in the rare reminder today, but just in case.
No, it's a good idea. We've decided that we're going to be open on Saturdays, 12:30 to 3. We're going to open this Saturday. Lori and Jack and myself, John, I think you said you were planning on coming down and so we're probably going to be doing a little cleaning while we're there. And we're going to start opening on Saturdays. That's pretty much it.
Good.
You know?
So we're going to be cleaning on Saturday?
Well, we'll do some.
All
We
right.
won't do too much, you know. We get too tired.
You
I
should have
think
said that
John's saying he wants to go elsewhere.
What's that, Gail?
I said, I think John is saying he wants to go elsewhere now.
Oh, that's fine. We have, you know, Lori and Jack and myself will be there. So, you know, if you want to come, you can. And if you don't want, that's okay too.
I'm still thinking of transferring to McMurdo Station in the Antarctic, but I don't know if I can get a flight down there tonight.
We also will be there for Memorial Day. The museum will be open. And we put the bunting out. Jack and I put the bunting out this past week. And I think in June we actually have a hike that's coming up. So you can look for that if you're interested, either Dividend or Quarry. Can't remember which.
June 5th, it's Dividend.
Oh, thank you, Nancy.
You know, Gail, before I forget it, you sent out an email about the Open House Connecticut Day. And I didn't send any paperwork in this year because we weren't sure if when the museum was going to be opening up. But that paperwork was really basically so that we could get in, the paperwork, the announcements they have for it. But as far as Open House Connecticut Day, we're still going to be open on a Saturday. We're just not going to be advertised statewide for it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
What was that, Gail? Did you say something?
No, I was thanking John.
Oh.
We don't usually get too many people because I do think someone on here has said before that a lot of the people go to some of the large museums that charge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I understand that. And I don't know if you saw one of the things that said that children are going to get in most museums free in the state of Connecticut this summer.
All right.
Starting either in June or July through till September. And so you only have to have like one Connecticut adult. I don't know if they're going to ask you for your driver's license or what, but it just said that Connecticut kids will get to see, and that was museums, the landmarks, you know, any park, state park, anything like that. No charge this summer for kids.
Yep.
Okay, then I think that was for the good of the society. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn then our annual meeting. If somebody can give me a motion to adjourn,
Yeah, I'll give a motion to adjourn.
and then a second.
I'll second.
And then all in favor, just raise your hand, say yes or aye, either one.
Aye.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you down the road. Okay?
Thank you.
Good to me.
Night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Tim and
All
Bob.
right. Yep. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
We're waiting for July now.
It was a tease.